stick around. We are going to start chapter 4 of Ramona Quimby, age 8. So yesterday we finished chapter 3, and Ramona broke the hard-boiled egg on her head and had to go to the office to get cleaned up. And while she was waiting for the nurse to come back, she overheard her teacher saying some not so nice things about her, and it upset her. And Yard Ape was actually very nice to her and tried to comfort her. So, now we're going to read chapter 4, The Quimby's Quarrel. Remember yesterday I asked you to think about what quarrel meant and maybe look it up? Quarrel means like an argument, a little fight. Nothing major, just a little fight. "But Ramona," said Mrs. Quimby on Saturday, "I've already told you that I boiled several eggs, so I wouldn't have to boil an egg for you every morning. I put the boiled eggs on one shelf in the refrigerator and the raw eggs on another. In my hurry, I took an egg from the wrong shelf. I am sorry. There is nothing more I can say." Ramona remained silent. She felt mean and unhappy because she wanted to forgive her mother, but something in that dark, deep down place inside her would not let her. Hearing her teacher call her a show-off and a nuisance hurt her so much she could not stop being angry at almost everyone. Mrs. Quimby sighed in a tired sort of way as she gathered up sheets and towels to feed into the washing machine in the basement. Ramona stared out the window and wished the misty rain, which fell softly and endlessly, would go away so she could go outdoors and roller skate away her bad feelings. Beezus was no help. She had spent the night at Mary Jane's house with several other girls, and they had stayed up late, watching a horror movie on television and eating popcorn. Afterward, they stayed awake talking, too scared to go to sleep. That morning, Beezus had come home tired and grouchy and had fallen asleep almost immediately. Ramona wandered around the house looking for something to do. When she discovered her father sitting on the couch, pencil in hand, drawing pad on his knee, frowning at one bare foot. "Daddy, what are you doing that for?" Ramona wanted to know. "That's what I keep asking myself," her father answered as he wiggled his toes. "I have to draw a picture of my foot for my art class. I wish we got to do things like that in my school," said Ramona. She found pencil and paper, pulled off one shoe and sock, and climbed on the couch beside her father. Both studied their feet and began to sketch. Ramona soon found that drawing a foot was more difficult than she had expected. Like her father, she stared, frowned, drew, erased, stared, frowned, and drew. For a little while she forgot she was cross. She was enjoying herself. "There," said Ramona at last. She had drawn a good, not an excellent, foot. She looked at her father's paper and was disappointed in what she saw. It was the kind of picture a teacher would pin off in the corner where no one but the artist would notice it. Her father's foot looked like a flipper. For the first time, Ramona began to doubt that her father was the best artist in the whole world. This thought made her feel sad, in addition to reminding her that she was cross at the world. Mr. Quimby studied Ramona's picture. "That's not bad," he said. "Not bad at all." "My foot is easier to draw." Ramona felt as if she should apologize for drawing a better foot than her grown-up father. "My foot is sort of neater," she explained. "Your foot is kind of bony and your toes are hairy. That makes your foot harder to draw." Mr. Quimby crumbled his drawing and threw it into the fireplace. "You make me sound like Bigfoot," he said with a rueful laugh as he threw a cushion at Ramona. The day dragged on. By dinner time, Ramona still had not been able to forgive her mother, who looked even more tired. Mr. Quimby had crumbled several more unsatisfactory drawings of his foot, and Beezus had emerged from her room sleepy-eyed and half awake when her mother called the family to supper. "I wish we could have cornbread again," Ramona said, not because she particularly liked cornbread, but because she felt so cross she wanted to complain about something. Cornbread was a pretty shade of yellow, which would have looked cheerful on a misty day. She leaned forward to sniff the plate of food set before her. Ramona, even though her father did not speak the words, his voice said, "We do not sniff our food in this house." Ramona sat up. "Broccoli and baked potato, both easy to eat. Pot roast?" Ramona leaned closer to examine her meat. She could not find one bit of fat, and there was only a bit of gravy poured over her serving. Good. Ramona refused even the tiniest bit of fat. She did not like the slippery, squishy filling in her mouth. Delicious, remarked Mr. Quimby, who did not feel he had to inspect his food before eating. Nice and tender, said Beezus, beginning to cheer up after her hard night. Ramona seized her fork, speared her meat to her plate, and began to saw with her knife. Ramona, try to hold your fork properly, said her father. Don't grip it with your fist. A fork is not a dagger. With a small sigh, Ramona changed her hold on her fork. Grown-ups never remembered the difficulty of cutting meat when one's elbows were so far below the tabletop. She succeeded in cutting a bite of meat the way her parents thought proper. It was unusually tender and not the least bit stringy like some pot roast her mother had prepared. It tasted good, too. Yummy, said Ramona, forgetting her anger. The family ate in contented silence until Beezus pushed aside her gravy with the side of her fork. Gravy was fattening, and although Beezus was slender, even skinny, she was taking no chances. Mother, Beezus's voice was accusing, this meat has a rough surface. It does, answered Mrs. Quimby innocently. Ramona understood her mother was trying to hide something when she saw her parents exchange their secret sharing glance. She too scraped aside her gravy. Beezus was right. One edge of her meat was covered with tiny bumps. This meat is tongue! Beezus pushed her serving aside with her fork. They're eating a tongue. Like, tongue. Probably a cow tongue. Ooh. Have you ever had tongue? I haven't, and I don't want to. I don't like tongue. Tongue? Like Beezus, Ramona pushed her meat aside. Yuck, she said. Girl, stop being silly. Mrs. Quimby's voice was sharp. What do you mean you don't like tongue? Demanded Mr. Quimby. You were just eating it and enjoying it. But I didn't know it was tongue then, said Beezus. I hate tongue. Me too, said Ramona. All those yucky little bumps. Why can't we have plain meat? Mrs. Quimby was losing patience. Because tongue is cheaper, that's why. It's cheaper and it's nutritious. You know what I think, said Mr. Quimby? I think this whole thing is a lot of nonsense. You liked tongue when you didn't know it was tongue, so there is no reason why you can't eat it now. Yes, this whole thing is ridiculous, said Mrs. Quimby. Tongue is disgusting, said Beezus. Picky can have mine. Mine too, echoed Ramona, knowing she should eat what was set before her. But tongue? Her parents were asking too much. The meal continued in silence, the girls guilty but defiant, the parents unrelenting. When Mr. Quimby finished his serving a tongue, he helped himself from Ramona's plate. Picky, purring like a rusty motor, walked into the dining room and rubbed against legs to remind the family that he should eat too. I wonder, said Mrs. Quimby, why we named the cat Picky. She and Mr. Quimby looked at one another and only partly suppressed their laughter. The girls exchanged sulky glances. Parents should not laugh at their children. All right, we will pick back up tomorrow with the second half. Have a great day, friends.